I serve as the coordinating committee chair of the Kalamazoo Climate Crisis Coalition. I'd first like to thank the sponsors of today's event, all of which are nonpartisan. Our first sponsor, the Western Michigan University Institute of Environment Sustainability, serves as an interdisciplinary hub with faculty in the physical and social sciences and the humanities. I teach a junior level course in environmental policy and politics, a required course in this major, and I would like to thank my class for their involvement and for submitting some wonderful questions for today's forum. Our second sponsor, the Kalamazoo Climate Crisis Coalition, mobilizes over 2,000 individuals and 25 area groups toward collective action to achieve immediate and drastic reductions in greenhouse gas emissions and rapid adoption of renewable energy through a transition grounded in social, racial, economic, and environmental justice. This forum is part of a current effort focused on educating citizens about how to be an environment and climate voter. Our third sponsor is the Western Student Association. And with us here today are the VP of Community Involvement and the VP of Sustainability with a special message from students.
Hi everyone, my name is Chelsea Spayman and I'm the Western Student Association Vice President for Sustainability.
And my name is Henry Theory. I'm the WSA Vice President for Community Involvement.
Speaking on behalf of WSA, as voters, as climate activists, and as students, we are confident in saying that climate change is likely one of the biggest crises we will face in our lifetime. We were drawn to support this forum for a multitude of reasons, the primary being that we are the generation that is going to be facing and dealing with the effects of climate change. Today in the news, you are already seeing the magnitude of the climate change crisis, and now what we can do is mitigate those effects. This election, among others, is our opportunity to take back some power in how we will continue to exist and affect the world. Student voters need to be an active voice in our relationship with climate change. We hope, as an organization, to see the values we're trying to instill in WMU echoed in the country. The Western Student Association fully endorses and supports any opportunity for students to become educated advocates for change, as well as thanks candidates for coming to speak today.
Thank you so much for the Western Student Association for supporting this forum, and special thanks to Chelsea and Henry today, as they will also serve as timekeepers for this event. Behind the scenes, two other folks deserve special recognition today. First, Donna McClurkin, who's the Kalamazoo Climate Crisis Coalition Communications Chair, and Shannon Abbott, who are taking care of all the technology today. Thank you so much for making this happen, and to all of our affiliates who support this event today. The questions, ground rules, and itinerary for today were sent to the participating candidates in advance. Now I'd like to just give a brief overview for our audience about how today's forum will proceed. We will begin the forum with a 2-minute opening remark by each candidate, and we will go in order of House District, so that's 60, 61, 63, and 66, and we will go in alphabetical order by last name. We will keep this same order throughout the forum in order to give the viewer the best comparison. After opening remarks, we will have a 1-minute answers to what we call the lightning round to several different questions. Again, that order will be by district and by candidate last name. Finally, we will hear 2-minute closing remarks by each candidate in that same order. Time will be kept with a digital timer. It will be visible to the moderator and candidates. When allotted time has expired, candidates will be allowed to finish a sentence before the moderator interrupts. After being interrupted, to note that time has expired, if the candidate continues speaking, the moderator reserves the right to mute the candidate. And for our audience, the speaker view will be on. You will also be able to see the timer. If you go to the top left or right of your screen and look at speaker view, and you maximize the larger button, you should be able to minimize the clock if you so choose to do so. Again, our thanks to Henry and Chelsea for being our vanguards of digital timekeeping in the candidate forum world. We are recording this event and live streaming through the Kalamazoo Climate Crisis Coalition Facebook page right now. The candidates agree that they, their organizations, and their supporters will not use the forum, portions of the forum, or any audio clips, video clips, or transcripts for political advertising or other purposes without written permission from the copyright holder, the Kalamazoo Climate Crisis Coalition. If that permission is granted, it will only be to broadcast the forum in its entirety. Let's go ahead and meet our candidates so that we can get started. Thank you so much for our team to creating these slides so that, again, we've got 4 different districts here. In House District 60, an open seat. Running as the Republican nominee, Gary Mitchell, was invited and did not respond to the invitation to participate today. With us today are the write-in candidate and the Democrat nominee, Stephanie Moore and Julie Rogers. In House District 61, and then another open race, Bronwyn Haltom was invited and did not respond to the invitation. With us today is the Democrat nominee, Christine Morse. In House District 63, Matt Hall, the incumbent Republican, was invited and declined to participate. We have offered to reach out for a statement and have gotten no response. Ron Hawkins, the write-in candidate, unfortunately, our team learned quite late about his candidacy, and we have offered for him to give a written statement. With us today from the 63rd are the Democrat nominee, Luke Howell, the Green Party nominee, John Anthony Pietra, the Libertarian nominee, Rafael Wolf. From House District 66, the incumbent Republican Beth Griffin was invited and did not respond to our invitation. With us today is the Democrat nominee, Abigail Wheeler. So with that, thank you candidates so much for joining us today and taking time out of your busy campaign schedules. We're going to go now to our opening remarks. Each candidate will get 2 minutes, and we will go again in order of House District 60, 61. I think you're going to get the idea pretty quick, candidates and viewers. So our opening remarks, 2 minutes each, starting with House District 60. That begins with you, Stephanie Moore.
Well, hello, and thank you for having me today. My name is Stephanie Moore. I'm a lifelong resident of Kalamazoo. I currently have served as a city commissioner, county commissioner, the first African-American to be elected to lead the Kalamazoo County Board of Commissioners. I have had success in city and county government, fighting to raise awareness and reduce infant mortality rates, adopting the ban the box policy, and championing local protections for the LGBTQ+ community with Ordinance 1856. I've championed the establishment of the county's first public defender's office, advocated for county IDs, reproductive justice, environmental justice. And I definitely am the only candidate here that has written and passed policy, have a track record of establishing and getting things done at both the city and the county level. And I currently chair the 60th District Community Services Charity Board, which I'm the only candidate with an inside view of the 60th District, how it works with budgets, policies, and most importantly, outreach and constituency services. Thank you for inviting me. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you so much, Stephanie Moore. So this next candidate in House District 60, 2 minutes, opening remarks, Julie Rogers.
Thank you, Denise, and thank you to the Kalamazoo Climate Crisis Coalition and WSA for hosting us. This is a great opportunity for people to get to know us. We've had a number of these forums, but none of them have been specific to the environment. So thank you. As you mentioned, I am the Democratic nominee running for House District 60. I'm also a 4-term county commissioner and a physical therapist. Why I'm running for this seat is to be a representative voice for the health and well-being of Kalamazoo's residents. I have had numerous opportunities and stories over the years of my patients that have had to choose between putting food on the table and their prescription medications or health care. And I think this is a sad state of affairs in 2020. I also think that the health and safety of our community goes hand in hand, whether it's personal well-being and health or the health of our community. And I think environmental topics go hand in hand with public health. I have had experience on the National Association I also serve on the Michigan Association of Counties Board of Directors, and I have had the opportunity of serving 10 years on the Kalamazoo County Brownfield Redevelopment Authority. Environmental justice is very important. In fact, it's one of the pillars in my campaign platform. I think we've spent quite a bit of time and work at the brownfield cleaning up and being reactive to pollution in our community. And I think it's time to now be more proactive. For more information, you can visit my website, juliemrogers.com. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So now we'll move to House District 61. Christine Morse, 2 minutes, opening remarks. You're on mute, Christine. We'll restart the time for you.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm Christine Morse. I'm running in House District 61, which encompasses the city of Portage as well as the townships of Prairie Run, Ashimo, Schoolcraft, and Texas. I am a Michigan native, was born and raised here, went to school at Michigan State and Wayne State for law. And after moving around for 11 years during my husband's Navy career, we settled here in 2010 in Kalamazoo. And shortly thereafter, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, which was sort of the impetus for where I am today. What cancer teaches you is there's no time like the present to try to make a difference in your community. And so in 2018, I decided to run for County Commissioner of District 9. And I really wanted to be a representative that was transparent and accessible to the people of District 9. And so I was grateful to be elected, and it's been an honor sitting on the County Commission, where it was my privilege to honor, or my privilege to vote on proclamations such as the climate crisis, the Kalamazoo Climate Crisis Coalition's proclamation to declare a climate crisis here in Kalamazoo County, which then gives us the opportunity to move forward with some of those sustainability policies that we should be including in our county government so that we can make a difference here. I am running for State House because those needs that I felt we needed in District 9 are the same for District 61. And in fact, during the course of serving for District 9, I have seen how much the state impacts what we're doing here at the local level. And we need a strong voice at the State House if we're going to make big change in our government and make big change for our residents here. And as my colleague said, we need to be proactive about the environment and make sure we're addressing changes now.
Thank you so much. So we will now move to the House District 63rd. We've got 3 candidates. Again, we're going to go in order of alphabetical name. Luke Howell, that means you're first. 2 minutes for opening remarks.
Hello, I'm Luke Howell. I'm the Democratic nominee for the 63rd District. I was born and raised in Rock Island, Illinois. My father was a 37-year manufacturer for John Deere. I went to school at Iowa State University and the University of South Dakota. During the first 10 years of my professional career, I followed my wife at the time, who was a food scientist, and I was jumping every 2 years to make sure she was as successful as she can be, and she has been wildly successful. In 2008, that moved us to Michigan, where she works at Kellogg, and I have been an educator. I've also been a stay-at-home father, and most recently, I've been a tradesman. I am a plumber and pipe fitter, an HVACR guy for Local 357, currently contracted with Dan Wood Company. And one of the reasons I'm running is because of direct environmental impact on my community. I face potentially a gravel pit across from my neighborhood, a very expansive gravel pit that may impact my community for 30 years. That type of gravel pit would impact my drinking water, my air quality. There's justice concerns with just the amount of gravel that may be on the road and chipped windows and things like that. I face an increase in a natural disaster that we've seen in some of our mining operations across the country. Obviously increased traffic for my children. So it's a big passion of mine is environment and making sure we're doing things responsibly. We're listening to science. We're making policy that works best for everyone. including manufacturers, but most importantly, the people that are directly affected by this current climate crisis. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next in House District 63, John Anthony LaPietra.
Hello, I'm John Anthony LaPietra, Green candidate for 63rd District State Representative, which is roughly, the district is roughly the southern half of Calhoun County and the eastern half of Kalamazoo County, getting backwards, sorry. I want to thank the Kalamazoo Climate Crisis Coalition, the Western Student Association, the WMU Institute of Environment and Sustainability, and Dr. Keefe is the moderator. Thank you all for this opportunity. Today's crises have reminded us we're all essential to each other. Well, 99% of us are at least. Now more than ever, we need government of the people to work and work out for the people and be run by the people. To get this, we need representatives who want government to work and know how to help it work. But too many covet government power for themselves, ignoring where it comes from. Michigan's Constitution says, all political power is inherent in the people. Government is instituted for their equal benefit, security, and protection. We must take back our power from the politicians and lobbyists. I've worked 10 years in government, state, regional, and local, 10 more in private business, local to international, and 10 with NGOs. So I know a government, small business, or nonprofit agency run to benefit the people can be as businesslike and efficient as any big corporation. From those decades of experience and 12 years now as a lawyer, I know how it feels to face our government. I've defended voting rights, civil rights, and property rights, freedom of information, and freedom to sell fireworks. I know how to read laws and write them and work to pass them, and I know how to translate legalese into plain English. I believe Michigan values are green values, values like ecological wisdom, grassroots democracy, social justice, community-based economics, and sustainability. If we all come together around those values, we can all have the fair say we deserve in the decisions that affect our lives, not just a few fat cats with fat checks. Thank you.
Thank you. In the House District 63rd, continuing opening remarks, 2 minutes for Rafael Wolf.
Yes, hi there, constituents. My name is Rafael Wolf. I'm running in the House 63rd District race. Just a couple of thoughts, less about me and more on the economic situation in the world. These things in business and in my business, I always look at the macro level of things and like to work my way down. So at a macro level, you might want to jot down something called the petrodollar. And so the world economy runs on the petrodollar. So a lot of these issues that we're talking about today, we can't unfortunately solve because it's more of a federal matter. It's more about global economics and macroeconomics. I think that governments make lots of money on fossil fuels, and that's sort of the crux of the problem. Take Enbridge, for example. You look at Enbridge and see who Enbridge gives money to. It's typically Democrats and Republicans. Certainly Libertarians and Greens are not in office. We don't hold any political power. The folks that don't really want to, they give platitudes that, yes, global climate change, it's scary, we need to make changes. But that's the front-facing facade that's not realistic, because in the background they're getting paid by big oil and lobbyists. So unfortunately, if you continue to vote in for the establishment, Democrats and Republicans, you won't see any substantive change. At a local level, there's some things you can do, like somebody mentioned, brownfield cleanup. Again, those are federal dollars, laws and policies put in place over time that allowed polluters and didn't hold polluters accountable. I'm talking about individual CEOs and VPs, for example, that run these companies that polluted the environment. So those are my opening thoughts, and I thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So moving now to House District 66, opening remarks, 2 minutes, Abigail Wheeler.
Hello, everyone. I am Abigail Wheeler. I am the Democratic nominee for Michigan's 66th State House District, which is all of Van Buren County, Cooper Township, Alamo Township, and Parchment City, which is in Kalamazoo County. I am a firefighter EMT who has lived in Michigan my entire life and lived in the 66th District my entire life. I am also a member of my local village council who was elected in 2018. I decided to run for village council back in 2018 because I realized I didn't know when leaf pickup was, how was I going to know how my taxpayer dollars are being spent? So after being elected, I worked on things such as transparency and communication. Michigan ranks last of all 50 states in governmental transparency, and I want to work to change that. So the things that I've learned, the leadership skills that I've learned from being a firefighter and the government processes that I've learned and being the village council, the things that I want to take to the state house, working on things like education, the environment, which is near and dear to my heart, and transparency. I am really excited to be on this journey and to work for the people. That is my number one thing, is to be a present representative who works for the people and listens to the people. There are specific populations in my district that haven't been heard, and they need to be heard. So thank you so much for having me today, and I look forward to answering all your questions.
Great, thank you so much, candidates. That concludes our opening remarks. I do want to just remind our audience of the different matchups and the different races, so we could put that. Thank you so much. So again, we're going in order here, and those of you who live in these districts hopefully have already heard some of these names before. From House District 60, with us today are the write-in candidate Stephanie Moore, the Democratic nominee Julie Rogers. With us today from House District 61 is the Democrat nominee Christine Morse. With us today from House District 63 are the Democrat nominee Luke Howell, the Green nominee John Anthony Pietra, the Libertarian nominee Rafael, and with us today from House District 66, Abigail Wheeler. That will be the order that we continue to do all of our lightning round questions in. So I just wanted to take a minute and remind everyone of the actual districts and matchups that you are listening to today. So we're gonna start our lightning rounds now. These will be the 1 minute answers for each question. So we're gonna keep our digital timer, and that will show 1 minute, 30 seconds, 15 seconds, and then a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 countdown, as you've seen in the 2 minute version. Again, the lightning rounds are 1 minute answers for each question for each candidate in order by those House districts and by the last name of the candidate. So I think we can go ahead and move to question 1 now. And to help me out, it is on your screen, as well as, again, we gave these to the candidates in advance. So question 1, what do you see as the major environmental or climate change impacts, threats, or vulnerabilities in Michigan or at the federal US level? We'll start again with House District 60, and first up, Stephanie Moore.
Thank you, Denise. And I would like to say that I am the Democratic nominee from the Michigan Democratic Black Caucus, and I'm the only candidate to secure a nomination from a Black, Indigenous, people of color caucus or organization. What I believe are the environmental threats and vulnerabilities is energy and climate change, access to clean water, air pollution, and depletion of trees in urban areas. I have a proven record of addressing these issues, both at the city and county level. The revamping of LaCrone Park, the trees were planted and treated, green space expanded, and also leading Kalamazoo County through a water crisis, PFAS, when it entered our water system. And I made sure that that response was not a Flint .2, but an adequate response that included briefings, outreach to the communities, and most importantly, getting clean water to the residents immediately.
Thank you. Continuing in House District 60, same question, 1 minute, Julie Rogers.
Thank you. One of the biggest concerns we've had in Kalamazoo County has been record flooding levels, both at the city of Kalamazoo and Kalamazoo Township. And I'm sure Christine Morse, who is in Texas Township, will talk a little bit more about that. Our earth is heating up, and frankly, I view it almost as shedding tears, whether it be hurricanes, hail in the middle of the day, fires in California, record droughts, record flooding. We have these very strange events that continue to be because of our planet heating up, and we've got to act today. We've been kicking the can down the road for way too long, and the time is now. It's why I introduced a climate crisis resolution at the Kalamazoo County that passed significantly. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move now to House District 61. 1 minute, and anyone let me know if you need me to repeat the question at any time. House District 61, Christine Morse.
Thank you so much, Denise. As a county commissioner, I sit on the Texas Township Flooding Task Force, where we have had 3 years, going on 3 years of flooding in 2 lakes in the surrounding neighborhoods. So we're already seeing the impacts of climate change at a local level and also across the state. We know there's many areas of flooding, including in the city of Kalamazoo. So what I found when I was looking into how can we help the residents, there aren't a lot of resources in place to start to impact the changes from climate change. So what we need to do is be proactive at the state level and work to introduce those resources so that we can impact infrastructure, if it's infrastructure that we need, or things such as being stewards of the Great Lakes and protecting our water. We have had PFAS contamination here in our county. We need to ensure everyone has safe drinking water. And we've also seen the haze from the other side of the country. So we're definitely seeing the impacts of climate change, and we need to do something about it.
Thank you. I'll just repeat the question. As the major environmental or climate change impacts, threats, or vulnerabilities in Michigan or at the federal level, we'll move now to House District 63. First up, Luke Howell.
Hi. Yeah, I'm, kind of unique with Rafael and John and I's district. We have the Kalamazoo River that runs for a big, significant portion of our district, and it's a big concern to us. This summer, and I hate it because of all the coronavirus and Donald Trump noise that just infects our media, we don't get to talk about some of the things that are really important. And this summer, the Morrow Lake silt release was a huge environmental impact that we haven't even discussed yet. Obviously, we have blue issues and red issues, but the environment affects both red and blue. If you ask Christine, the people in her district that are affected are not just Democrats, they're Republicans too. And we have fissures right now in our ecosystem that is drastically being affected by the silt release from Morrow Lake that's going all the way down to the Kalamazoo Nature Center. And it's definitely something I plan on talking about at the State House.
Thank you. Same question, 1 minute, John Anthony LaPietra.
Yes, well, the biggest vulnerability Michigan has is in its name. Is we're the Great Lakes state, and it's the Great Lakes all around us that are already showing the impacts of the climate crisis, as well as a lot of the little lakes and other waters inland. And there's vulnerability all over, particularly to drilling and pipelines, the threat of fracking, and development regardless of climate impact already showing up. And it's not just Democrats and Republicans who are noticing this. In fact, more people in this country, and almost certainly in this state, identify with neither the Democrats nor Republicans than with either one. So I would encourage all of you to remember that and know there are a lot more of us out here. So let's all pull together on this. I'd also mention agriculture is another area of impact and concern.
Thank you. Continuing in House District 63rd, same question, 1 minute, Rafael Wolf.
Yes, thank you. Unfortunately, the future looks bleak. And again, this is a macro level issue. We're talking about climate change, not micro level issues like fracking in your neighborhood. I see a worse environment, continued species decline, potentially war over resources, and death. I know it's not a happy note to end on. The threats are overpopulation globally. Overpopulation is the #1 threat to climate change. It just is. More people means more consumption of resources, more need to mine, more need to harvest, more need to burn, especially with our current technological policies here in the United States. And our vulnerabilities are just economic decline and constituent voter greenwashing by what I call the duopoly, the Republicans and Democrats. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, the question is the major environmental or climate change impacts, threats, or vulnerabilities in Michigan or at the federal level from House District 66. Again, 1 minute, Abigail Wheeler.
Hi, I think that a few of the threats that in particular that we're facing in my district is lake erosion as well as flooding. We have seen on South Haven and in Covert in my district, the lake erode away as it's rising, erode away shorelines, erode away cliffs that houses are on, and houses are falling into the lake, and as a result of climate change. This also has an agricultural impact, which is scary because that could impact the cost of our food as well. As we see the water table rise, that's the agricultural impact there. So we need to do something serious, and we need to do it quickly. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. We'll move on to our second question in this lightning round of 1-minute answers now. Since we just discussed threats, now we'd like you to respond to what do you see as the major opportunities to respond to environmental issues and the climate crisis in Michigan or at the federal US level. Again, we'll follow our order starting in House District 60, 1 minute, Stephanie Moore.
Well, definitely, I believe completing the 2020 census is critical for all green efforts because the funding is tied to it. The federal funding is tied to it. I believe we can approve the state standard and a statewide environmental plan. Yes, one exists that I support, but I think we can do better by bringing the community together, representing all sectors to the table to toughen the standards that are set by diversity, inclusion, and equity. And most importantly, I think PACE, Property Assessed Clean Energy, state-funded program to go green. And there is also the 2020 Concentrated Animal Feeding Operation Permitting Process. The CAFOS is where the manure and fertilizer and runs off of farms and pollutes the waterways after it rains and storms and floods and et cetera. And that bacteria and what it does to the livestock pollutes our waterways, especially Lake Erie and the Saginaw Bay. There's a lot of opportunities. We can come together and do this, support the work of our current governor, but there's some things we can step up and do locally as well.
Thank you. Continuing in House District 60, same question, 1 minute, Julie Rogers.
As I said earlier, with our brownfields, for too long we've been reactive, and we need to be more proactive, and that starts by holding polluters accountable. We also need to do more public-private partnerships. The fiscal crisis we're having with COVID is going to make it difficult to find funding for new plans. But I think if we team up with, Consumers Energy and DTE and suggest ways that we can incentivize going green, whether it be solar at home or purchasing lower emissions vehicles. For a long time, our federal government incentivized our electric vehicles, and now we've taken a step backwards with the new president's withdrawal of a lot of those policies. I would also say protecting our Great Lakes, as Abigail mentioned earlier, erosion is a significant problem that will be catching up with our agriculture and food pricing. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, the question is, what do you see as the major opportunities to respond to environmental issues and the climate crisis in Michigan at the federal level? We'll move to House District 61, 1 minute, Christine Morse.
Well, first of all, if we want to see positive change on environmental policy and law here in the state of Michigan, we need to flip the Michigan State House, because I don't believe we will make significant change if we don't have Democrats at the helm who are pushing to make sure that polluters pay, that our PFAS standards are appropriate and safe for us. And we can support the governor with her most recently announced plan to move toward carbon neutrality and invest in our water infrastructure to make sure that we are not poisoning our residents with lead pipes. I also would really hope that we can work across the aisle on things we can agree on: sustainable energy sources, infrastructure, and ensure access to safe drinking water for all.
Thank you. Same question, the major opportunities that you see. Back to House District 63, 1 minute, starting with Luke Howell.
Yeah, first off, I want to say, wow, these are some 4 amazing women that are running, under the big D, and I'm very impressed with their answers. They're answering a lot of some of the things I'd like to talk about, but I'd like to also build on some of that. methane capture from our landfills is huge. And as a plumber, pipe fitter, HVACR guy, there's lots of opportunities there. One of the challenges we have for our electric vehicles right now is sort of the model in which we sell vehicles in the state, and making it equitable and fair, but at the same time encouraging electric vehicle purchases in this state. Right now you have this model of dealerships that is making it prohibitive for people to buy Tesla vehicles in the state. And Dana Nessel has reached a settlement, but we still have some work to do there as well. I just want to echo what the women have said so far. They're great answers.
Thank you. Continuing in House District 63, same question, 1 minute. John Anthony La Pietra.
Well, we have big problems. It also means we have big opportunities to do better. That's why the Green Party has for a decade now and more been advocating for a real deal, a full comprehensive Green New Deal. Our presidential candidate this year is the original Green New Deal campaigner and candidate, Howie Hawkins. This plan, with its budget, is online at the Green Party's website and at Howie Hawkins's own. It calls for 100% clean renewable energy by 2030 with no natural gas, fracked gas, or nuclear power. And there is a policy of greening the dollar to provide more public money for infrastructure and such that we need. More details on that coming up in later questions.
Thank you. Continuing in House District 63, same question, 1 minute. Rafael Wolf.
Yes, so major opportunities to respond to environmental issues. I mean, the biggest one anybody watching could do is consider regime change. A lot of these things exist because of, again, global economic stuff. This is all macro level stuff. Again, with the petrodollar, if you just look that up, look to see what it does. Look to see how it maintains political power and maintains global economic power of the U.S. That's why the U.S. dollar is the reserve currency, because of the petrodollar. Nobody in Washington, nobody in Michigan is interested in getting off of carbon emitting things because they make tax dollars on it. Somebody mentioned working with DTE and consumers to come up with green stuff. It's like they're not interested in doing that. DTE and consumers is not interested in getting rid of customers. They want to create these systems and get more customers on them, green or not. Thank you.
Thank you. The question again is major opportunities to respond to environmental issues in the climate crisis in Michigan or at the federal level. We'll move now to House District 66. 1 minute, Abigail Wheeler.
I see an opportunity to move more towards renewable energy and to put a price on carbon. We, like it was said before, we need to hold corporations accountable for being the big polluters. And by implementing renewable energy, such as electric cars, solar panels, that sort of thing, we can really make a change in our environment. And it's the biggest thing that we need to do is putting a price on carbon so that these emissions and the standards can be drastically changed in order for us to actually make an impact. Right now is now or never, and we're getting to a point where we cannot, there is a point of no return and we're nearing it, and we need to do something now. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes question 2. We will move on to our third general question. What current or proposed specific environment, energy, or climate policies do you support, do you think could gain bipartisan support in Michigan or at the federal US level? So again, it'll be a 1 minute lightning round question, starting with House District 60. First up, Stephanie Moore.
In our state, most recently, solar have had its efforts beat back by the Republicans, and in action on their part, particularly the Michigan Senate Energy Committee, Also in Michigan, electric vehicles have been beat back with legislation, House Bill 6233, which prohibits vehicle manufacturers from selling their vehicles directly to consumers, nor can they service their vehicles in Michigan or conduct test rides so that they can subsequently shut down the electric vehicle conversation for right now. I think that's a major opportunity to bring forward. And as our state and counties and cities continue to have to furlough and fire workers, that will impede permitting process, particularly around polluters, that will also impact and impede enforcement around contamination and other issues. We need our state oversight officials to be able to look into opening that. And it takes relationships and dialogue and hard work, a champion, to get that done across the aisle in Michigan.
Thank you. Continuing in House District 60, same question, 1 minute. Julie Rogers.
We need a comprehensive energy plan at the statewide level, a roadmap, if you will. And that's why I recently proposed a amendment to strengthen our sustainability policy within our county budget in Kalamazoo. We really need to do some planning on the front end and be very thoughtful so that we can be strategic. I think there's an appetite in Kalamazoo County. I'm excited that the city of Kalamazoo, Kalamazoo Township, and Kalamazoo County all did pass the climate crisis resolutions. And so I think there's major opportunity for collaboration just even at the local level. And then after that plan is created, it shouldn't be a book on a shelf. It needs to be reviewed at least annually and updated. Things and technology changes, and so the cost of solar panels has come way down from even 6 or 7 years ago. So there are many more opportunities that are affordable that were off the table previously.
Thank you. The question again is, what current or proposed specific policies do you think could gain bipartisan support? We'll move to House District 61. 1 minute, Christine Morse.
Thank you. So we really have to think about what values do we have that both sides should be able to move forward with. I would hope that drinking water would be one of the top issues. I mean, it is something we all need to live. And so it should be something we can all support. So a way that we can, maybe bring together some bipartisan support is say, let's replace lead service lines, as the governor has already suggested. Let's put some money into infrastructure, put people back to work, and make sure that our water resources are safe for the future, for the coming generations. And also, continued PFAS cleanup and identification of those areas where PFAS is contaminating the water resources. That should be a no-brainer in terms of bipartisan support for putting some resources toward that issue as well.
Thank you. So we'll continue with this question. What current or proposed specific environmental policies do you think could gain bipartisan support in Michigan? Moving to the candidates in House District 63, 1 minute, starting with Luke Howell.
Yeah, so I currently work for a contractor that when I work with refrigerant gases, I can use a gas that is 1,000 times more destructive than CO2 to the environment, or one that's 10 times more destructive to CO2 or to the environment than CO2. When I'm burning to sweat pipes in somebody's basement, I can use one type of gas and I can use another type of gas. There's practical solutions out there. When we talk about, plumbers going into houses and talking about water quality, it shouldn't be a justice issue. It shouldn't be a socioeconomic issue. We need to start cleaning up the service lines like Christine has said. But, you have right now customers that can pay a pretty penny and get clean water in their house, and you have others that are endangering their children's and their brain development. So these are all things that we need to be able to talk about, and I just want to bring the working perspective to the state house so that people can see that and see that those practical solutions aren't difficult. They just take people going to the table and sitting down and working on it.
Thank you. Same question, 1 minute, John Anthony Pietra.
First, I'd ask, which other party of the 4 that are represented, even on our lists here, should I be working with? Bipartisan is still partisan. We need either nonpartisan or omnipartisan efforts. Unfortunately, the Green New Deal has been somewhat subsumed in some areas by one party, but we present it for everybody and we want everybody to know about it. You can read up about it at gp.org/green_new_deal. And it is a matter of justice, social and economic. And it's a matter also of energy democracy, worker, community, and public ownership of energy resources and companies. And there's more on that as well.
Thank you. Same question, 1 minute, Rafael Wolf.
Yes, hi, thank you. Maybe some positivity here for me finally, but I echo John's omnipartisan sentiments. The word bipartisan is, again, sort of propagandistic to a two-party only solution. You know, some solutions are maybe hydro solutions. There was the dam up in north of Saginaw, the Sanford Dam, and there was another one that broke. We could rebuild those better and bigger potentially. Maybe decentralized solar, which would take away power from DTE and consumers from a tax perspective and a power perspective. Maybe emission standards in the state like Colorado. Nobody's testing vehicles in the state. Maybe more CEO accountability and working with corporations to adjust some of the things like PFAS to reformulate them to be more environmentally friendly. Thank you.
Thank you. The question again, current or proposed specific environmental policies, and I will take the cue from my learned colleagues, that might gain omnipartisan support in Michigan or at the federal level in House District 66. 1 minute, Abigail Wheeler.
I'm with Christine on the fact that we need, in order for it to be bipartisan, we need to make it something relatable, like clean drinking water. Everyone wants clean drinking water for their family, and it has been affected in my district specifically, again, with the PFAS, and has the potential to be as scary as the Flint water crisis. So doing more research on things like PFAS and, again, keeping corporations accountable is very important. I also support what the governor has already started to do with being carbon neutral by completely by 2050. I think that is something that is the step in the right direction, and that we need to get more specific details set in place so that we can actually achieve something as big as that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, all the candidates on question 3. So we'll move on, continuing our lightning round to our 4th question. And I'm going to give just a little bit of background so that all of our audience is up to speed on what you were sent and what's sort of been going on. So this is the 10-year anniversary of the Enbridge oil spill into the Kalamazoo River, and Enbridge's Line 5 pipeline in the Straits of Mackinac is under intense public and legal scrutiny. Positions vary, with some favoring requiring significant upgrades, technological safety reviews, and increased spill cleanup measures for Enbridge's Line 5 through the Straits. Others favor the complete replacement of the twin pipelines with the best available pipeline technology, such as double-walled systems or relocating the pipeline to a new tunnel through the Great Lakes. Finally, there are many groups that support working toward permanently removing Enbridge's oil pipelines through the Straits of Mackinac. These groups are convinced that only the shutdown of Line 5 through the Straits can guarantee that an oil spill will not pollute the Great Lakes. What is your position on Enbridge's Line 5? We'll start again in House District 60. 1 minute, Stephanie Rogers. Or, sorry, Stephanie Moore. I knew I was going to do it at some point. My apologies. Stephanie Moore, 1 minute.
Apology accepted. Thank you. So I definitely believe that everything we do, we have to protect the water. We have to secure it. And if that means shutting it down, then so be it. I definitely believe that the work needed in order to address Enbridge Pipeline 5 has to be done by Michigan workers, Michigan residents. I believe that we have to do everything we can to protect our water supply through the Straits and all across Michigan. I believe that we have to look at the input from the engineers and those folks, the consumer protection folks that know this work, advise us and go into the room at the table able to make those decisions to do this work, protecting our water, protecting our economy, and most importantly, also protecting our workers.
Thank you. Same question, 1 minute, Julie Rogers.
On the County Board of Commissioners, I voted for Commissioner Mike Quinn's resolution to shut down Line 5. So I have had a record of supporting that. However, I would say it's easy to talk about shutting down Line 5. It's much more complex to talk about how are we going to replace that energy. My friends in the UP are often reminding me that they will be left in the lurch if we don't come up with some kind of comprehensive plan and Line 5 is shut down. So while I absolutely think that we need to protect our waterways, protect our drinking water, protect our tourism dollars, with the Great Lakes protection, we do need to come up with a statewide comprehensive energy plan, like I referenced earlier, so that our residents in the UP will continue to be supported. Also, Line 5 has shown a light on our infrastructure needs annual inspection. For the public safety, those lines need to be inspected.
Thank you. Same question. What is your position on Enbridge's Line 5 moving to House District 61? 1 minute, Christine Morse.
Thank you. So I agree with my colleague, Commissioner Rogers, that this is a very complicated question. It's very easy to say that we do not want oil pipelines going under the Great Lakes. It is our greatest resource and we should be protecting it. I think Line 5 as it is now is dangerous and not taken well care of. And so I would like to see the options for getting energy, again, as Commissioner Rogers mentioned, to the northern part of our state. That's what makes it complicated. And so I would hope that we can get more information and more proposals about what is the best way to deliver energy to the northern part of Michigan and provide and keep our water safe. And I feel like at this point, I don't have enough information about what the great options are, to be honest. So I look forward to, if I'm elected, receiving more information about what our options are.
Thank you. We'll move to House District 63 now with the same question. What is your position on Enbridge's Line 5? 1 minute, starting with Luke Howell.
Yeah, so echoing Julie's point about the comprehensive plan, we do need a comprehensive plan. Eventually, I would like that comprehensive plan to say that we don't need that energy flowing through the pipeline. At the current present rate where we're at right now, we do need that pipeline. We have so much misinformation now though, and it's so frustrating because we talk about environmental regulation. Well, that environmental regulation includes maintaining that pipeline and keeping that pipeline operating where it needs to be, and it's not there yet. So our infrastructure projects have got to include the improvement of that pipeline. As a plumber pipe fitter, there are new technologies I trust, there's new technologies I don't trust. And we do need to repair what has been broken. That thing has been hit a couple times in the last few years, and that's very dangerous. And we need to think about that. But at the same time, we need the engineers and being able to trust the experts to move us forward so that it improves.
Thank you. Continuing in House District 63, same question, 1 minute, John Anthony LaPietra.
I live in Marshall. We have a lot of history in Marshall, including our history with Enbridge. If we don't remember our history, we're doomed to repeat it. Shut Line 5 down.
Am I the only one that lost John? Okay.
I have time to finish it off again, I think.
Go ahead.
I live in Marshall. We have a lot of history in Marshall, including our history with Enbridge. If we don't remember our history, we are doomed to repeat it. Shut Line 5 down.
Okay, that was the answer.
That was all of it, yes.
I wasn't sure. I want to make sure we give you the full time. So continuing in House District 63, same question, 1 minute, Rafael Wolf.
Yeah, so I think there's a Republican plan, and it's actually Enbridge's plan to tunnel under the straits. I don't think that's unreasonable. It seems pretty reasonable to me to tunnel under the straits as they planned. You know, it's a Canadian company, and I think they're going to pay for it. And so taking the water pipeline out of the straits in the water and putting it underground, again, just seems reasonable to me. And we aren't going to be able to just get rid of Line 5 because you have to unwind again, those macroeconomic systems in place that makes everybody dependent on Line 5. And quite frankly, everybody is. And so to say get rid of it is just not easy. It's not even doable, I don't think. Thank you.
Thank you. So same question. What is your position on Enbridge's Line 5? We'll move to House District 66. 1 minute, Abigail Wheeler.
I have been lucky enough to talk to different unions, whether it's the painters or the plumbers and pipe fitters, about Line 5. And as Rafael said, the plan is to hopefully put the line underwater, right? So below the lakes. And what that does is ensure safety a little bit more. That's a way that we can start to guarantee that our waterways won't be contaminated. And I think that before we say, yep, go ahead, we need to be able to guarantee that our water will be safe. This will also needs to address the sacrifice of union jobs. We cannot sacrifice union jobs on this. We need to make sure that they are done by union because it'll be done right, it'll be done on time, and it will be done safely with union jobs. And that is the biggest thing, is safety and making sure that it does not contaminate our water, which all of these measures put together will really help keep our lakes safe.
Great. Thank you, candidates, for all those answers on Enbridge's Line 5. Again, affiliates, students, all sorts of folks were able to send us questions. So the first 3 questions were general, that the candidates have known about for quite some time. And these last ones were ones that were sent in that were important to the constituents and the sponsors of today's panel. And so they're a little bit longer, but these are coming from our groups that are watching this today. So we'll move on now to our 5th question. You guys are doing great on time. We might even get through all these questions today, which is very exciting. Question 5, often referred to as environmental racism, the Environmental Protection Agency defines environmental justice as the fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people, regardless of race, color, national origin, or income, with respect to the development, implementation, and enforcement of environmental laws, regulations, and policies. In your opinion, do the districts you seek to represent, or does the state of Michigan have an environmental justice or environmental racism problem? If no, explain why not or why you reject this concept. If yes, what examples can you give, and what policies would you promote and support to better address and achieve environmental and climate justice? We'll start again in House District 60. 1 minute, Stephanie Moore.
Thank you, Denise. Absolutely, we have an environmental racism problem. We see the health outcomes of Black, Indigenous, people of color, not just in Michigan, but all across the country. Those outcomes are because systemically, policies have failed us. The policies that have been brought forward have not been adequately funded. And the people who suffer the most are the Black, Indigenous, and people of color. And even looking at this call right now, you can see that the representation in the room at the table devising the plans is not representative of that community. So we definitely need to change things up. We have to have access, opportunity. We understand environmental, the issues that are impacting us, from housing, from air to water. We are the most, have the most disparate outcomes, yet we are not likely by either political party to be advanced, allowed in the room, supported, and even really given thought to our issues, our concerns, and our strategies to diversify the movement for environmental justice.
Thank you. Same question, continuing in House District 60, 1 minute, Julie Rogers.
Yes, all over the United States, including in Kalamazoo County, we have a long history of systemic racism and particularly redlining. And what that's meant for Kalamazoo County is that for too many decades, and the impacts are still felt today, people of color were directed into certain areas of the community to live in, and those communities often abutted up into industry that had a disproportionate share of the pollution. So we need, while some of those policies have changed from a federal level and are now illegal, we still feel the effects from generation to generation today. One of the things I've also looked at is increased lead in our children, and something that could be proposed at the state level would be mandatory blood level testing in children to do more prevention and detection on the front end.
Thank you so much. We'll now move to House District 61. Same question, 1 minute, Christine Morse.
Yes, I do believe that environmental racism is a part of the institutions of our country and our state and our local governments. It shows up in the air we breathe, the soil we stand on, and the water we drink. I believe our whole state has issues of environmental racism because that has been built into our society through redlining, development, property assessment, contracting with certain companies and where they're located, and more. The solution would be, again, replacement of lead pipes, reinstating polluter pay, allowing local communities more leeway with rezoning and equity assessments of property purchases and contracting, and stopping companies like Nestle from using our resources for practically nothing in return.
Thank you. I'll repeat just the short end of the question again. In your opinion, do the districts you seek to represent, or does the state of Michigan have an environmental justice or environmental racism problem? If no, explain why not. If yes, explain what examples you can give and what policies would you promote and support to better address and achieve environmental and climate justice. We'll move now to House District 63, 1 minute, starting with Luke Howell.
Yet again, these women are amazing. I was going to talk about redlining and the effects it's had on community, and Julie jumped into that. And but I think the really big important point here is I want to acknowledge what Stephanie has said. She is a woman of color that brings something to the table that is really important in that voice. And I'm a white male. Father of 2 girls, and I can't change that, but I can listen, and I want to be a part of the system that is changing for the better for everyone, and I want to be a voice that not only speaks to poverty and wealth, but all colors and women and men, and being able to listen is, I think, a huge part of that. So thank you, Stephanie. I appreciate your sentiment here, and know that I will definitely be calling upon you if I'm elected.
Thank you. Continuing in House District 63, same question, 1 minute, John Anthony LaPietra.
Yes, there is a lack of environmental justice and an excess of environmental racism and classism and perhaps urbanism and or ruralism and among other things. But it definitely is a matter of justice for all. That's where it's supposed to be, liberty and justice for all. The Green Party recognizes this. In our 7 presidential tickets, we have had 6 people of color and 9 women. 2 women twice. I don't think anybody here disagrees with that particularly. We could all give ourselves examples from our areas. I think one issue that should be mentioned is the tendency towards NIMBYism, not in my backyard. What we need to realize is that some things don't belong in anyone's backyard.
Thank you. Continuing with House District 63, same question, 1 minute, Rafael Wolf.
Yes, hi. Locally here in our district, maybe the only thing I could think of is water access rights by farmers. but I don't necessarily think that's a racist issue because our district is 93% white, unlike other districts in the area that have a different mix of race and color. Racism is in the state, I think, a bit of a problem. Like an example would be the Gordie Howe International Bridge and the vacation of minorities, Black and brown minorities in that area to build that bridge. And the ones that were left are going to be subjected to diesel fumes and exhaust from all the vehicle traffic that's been redirected from the existing international bridge. So we certainly have those problems. I think maybe less than certain other states, but it's definitely a problem we need to address.
Thank you. I'll repeat the question briefly again. In your opinion, do the districts you seek to represent, or does the state of Michigan have an environmental justice or environmental racism problem? If no, explain why not. If yes, what examples can you give and what policies would you promote and support to better address and achieve environmental and climate justice? We'll move to House District 66. 1 minute, Abigail Wheeler.
Yes, there's definitely an issue there, and there needs to be more diversity, as we have all seen. And with Christine, that racism has been ingrained in our society for far too long, and that we need to start to make these changes. And I think acknowledging it is a step in the right direction, talking and having these conversations that this racism does exist, right? And again, they covered it, the redlining, getting rid of lead pipes. And then another thing is focusing on diversity in these areas, making sure that we are active about making sure we have people from all walks of life, all races, come in and have their say, and making sure that everyone is represented equally, whether it's the State House or for environmental protections.
Thank you. 5 questions in. We're about halfway through our questions, candidates and audience. So we'll move now to our 6th question. So Governor Whitmer has signed Executive Directive 2020-10, Building a Carbon Neutral Michigan, which states, Michigan will aim to achieve economy-wide carbon neutrality no later than 2050 and to maintain net negative greenhouse gas emissions thereafter. To ensure steady progress toward this ultimate statewide goal and to prevent irreparable harm to our ecosystem, residents, and businesses in the interim, the state will aim to achieve a 28% reduction below 1999 levels in greenhouse gas emissions by 2025. The question is, do you support the governor's directive? We'll start back at the top in House District 60. 1 minute, Stephanie Moore.
Absolutely, yes, Denise. I support Governor Whitmer's directive, just like I support the state of Michigan increasing the use of renewable energy by completely bidding. I also believe that energy providers should offer volunteer renewable energy and energy efficiency programs to customers that provide affordable ways to reduce their carbon footprint. And I also believe, piggyback on the last question, is you got to have that representation at the table in the room. If you're going to have a plan this massive, it has to include the voices, the lived experiences, and the wherewithal of Black, Indigenous, and people of color to be able to not only get it passed, but to implement it so that it's owned, it's felt, it's lived by the people that it's supposed to help. I believe that we cannot accomplish these great things unless we are diverse, inclusive, but also have that equity lens that everything we do is just and fair for every resident in the state of Michigan.
Thank you. Continuing in House District 60, same question, 1 minute, Julie Rogers.
Most definitely, and I would say it's long overdue. I really applaud the governor for putting some teeth and some specificity because as a lifelong resident of Michigan and Kalamazoo, I don't recall any governor ever being so bold. So I do applaud it. I would also encourage her to include in the shaping of this plan local municipalities. I would think that it would be best served if local counties and cities and townships for that matter, could tie into such a comprehensive plan to really make it successful and roll out to all the corners of Michigan. Again, as we face these fiscal crises over the next 2 years, we must invest in green infrastructure to have cost savings. And I think, as we were talking about with bipartisan support, whether you care about the environment or not, when you talk dollars and cents and energy savings, I think there's a lot of bipartisan support.
Thank you. We'll move to House District 61. Same question. Do you support the governor's Executive Directive 2020, Building a Carbon Neutral Michigan? 1 minute, Christine Morse.
Yes, I do. I mentioned it previously without specificity, but I'm excited to get to work on this one, and especially to work with companies who are increasing access to solar energy here in our district. You know, the state of Michigan over, the generations has been innovative, and it really is time to innovate again. And I understand that we have dependence on, oil and gas, and that is part of our problem. But I'm hoping that, as Commissioner Rogers said, there is cost savings in renewable energy, and we need to, just work together to make sure that we are making it a priority, and just showing companies that we can be successful by putting these green energy ideas into action.
Thank you. We'll move to the candidates in House District 63 now. Again, Governor Whitmer has signed Executive Directive 2020-10, Building a Carbon Neutral Michigan. Do you support the governor's directive? 1 minute, starting with Luke Howell.
Absolutely. I mean, this is one of the best visions and I think leadership she's shown as governor. I mean, that's so important when you were talking leadership. You set the vision, you say, this is where we need to be. Now the problem is today, we don't have a Republican in this forum, and that's frustrating, because what I would like to see is Republicans, Democrats, even Green and Libertarians and Constitutionalists coming to the table and saying, this is the vision we've been given. How can we make this possible? We're going to start with an all above, strategy, but I lived in Representative Steve King's district in Northwest Iowa, one of the most conservative places in the entire country. And there were turbines going up like crazy on those farms. It is possible to bring people together. Now, what we have to do is invest in Gretchen's plan, get together on the table and actually start working towards it. How can we practically put, the teeth, like Julie said, into this plan with everybody at the table?
Thank you. Same question. 1 minute, John Anthony LaPietra.
Well, I hate to disappoint you, but I'm not sure whether I support this plan. I support the fact that there is a plan and there are goals, but the version I read said a baseline of 2005 instead of 1999. I'm not sure where that is compared to where we are now, considering the economic difficulties we've had and slowdowns since either of those dates. I hope it's a modest goal, but we need to do more. That's why the Green Economic Reconstruction Program, as part of the Green New Deal, will not only build a 100% clean energy system by 2030, but will reconstruct all economic sectors for ecological sustainability, from agriculture and manufacturing to housing and transportation. I hope to hear some support for that broader, stronger vision among my colleagues here as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Same question, continuing in House District 63, 1 minute, Rafael Wolf.
Yes, John, nobody here has said they support the Green New Deal, but I certainly do support the Green New Deal in many, many aspects. Maybe John is the only one that has read the plan, because there doesn't seem to be a lot in there about specifics. It's about making more plans to plan. And again, it just seems greenwashed to me. And I think anybody watching in this forum knows what the word greenwashing is. And there's just a lot of greenwashing propaganda in the political process. for example, shrinking credits for solar. You know, if they're so interested in making solar, why are they shrinking the credits for solar and paying less for net metering? It just doesn't make any sense. It's double talk. Thank you.
Thank you. The question again, Governor Whitmer has signed Executive Directive 2020-10, Building a Carbon Neutral Michigan. Do you support the governor's directive? Moving to House District 66, 1 minute, Abigail Wheeler.
Yes, I support the governor's directive very much so. I think this is part of the reason why it's so important to get different leadership in the State House this year, because without the support behind the governor, we can't go into specifics, right? She took the first step of saying, this is an issue and this is where we're going to start fixing it by going carbon neutral. And so getting people like Christine, myself, and other Democrats into the State House is so important because we can help her create these other specifics, these directives that will lead to a better Michigan and a better country as a whole, and make it so that, you know, future generations can have this planet the way that we did, and maybe even better.
Thank you. So we'll move on now to question 7. She's putting that up there for me. Thank you so much. So the transportation sector has now surpassed all other sectors as the largest emitter of greenhouse gases in the state of Michigan. The recent governor's order appears to promote electric and autonomous vehicles, but implementation of these technologies is still a ways off. If elected, what state policies would you promote and support to develop a transportation system that reduces greenhouse gas emissions or allows people to drive less by making shorter trips, biking, walking, or riding mass transit? We'll start again at the top in House District 60, 1 minute, Stephanie Moore.
Again, I go back to the legislation in House Bill 6233, which prohibits vehicle manufacturing. We need to make sure that that House bill stays alive, that is entered and supported and passed. It's critical in terms of transportation. We need to make sure regionally, especially here in Southwest Michigan, that we have transportation that is emissions friendly. And I had the opportunity serving as a city commission, serving on the transportation board, that our public transportation system is very, very eco-friendly. They're totally green with the gas and all. And so it's the type of forethought that you have to have putting into the policies, but also making sure that it is adequately funded so that it's implemented to have the greatest impact in the state and especially in our region. So this is a very important issue. Transportation is a priority and for everyone, and we have to make sure that we're doing it well funded and eco-friendly.
Thank you. Same question, 1 minute, Julie Rogers.
I just got this question from a voter asking why their millage keeps going up on their tax bill regarding transportation. And unfortunately, our state legislature has not prioritized mass transit funding. And so that cost shift has come down to the local units of government. I did support both millages, the CCTA and the KCTA millages, and so it is able to keep our bus fares down and low, but the bearer of that tax is the local citizens, and so we really need to return to priority-based budgeting at the state level and put some additional dollars towards regional and bus transit. The other thing I would say is in terms of bicycles and walking, I presented a complete streets policy a few years ago to the county commission that passed with bipartisan support. I think it might have been nearly unanimously, encouraging multimodal transportation for all users.
Thank you. We'll move to House District 61 now. Same question, 1 minute, Christine Morse.
So first of all, I would say here in Kalamazoo County, we have tried to turn toward more friendly policies and support for expanding the safety of those cyclers here in our community. We actually appointed a couple of bike-friendly people to the County Road Commission. So, you know, we're moving here in our local community, trying to increase the safety of people trying to ride by bike. Mass transit obviously is very important, and we should be expanding it. And like Commissioner Rogers said, putting funding toward it. And Commissioner Moore mentioned this as well. You know, the more we can coordinate with across our region and ensure that people have the opportunity and it's convenient to take our mass transit, which the only option here we have is busing. But you know, we should be expanding that policy across the state, and again, investing in infrastructure in green ways to make sure we are improving our energy efficiency.
Thank you. I'll give a quick repeat of the question. If elected, what state policies would you promote and support to develop a transportation system that reduces greenhouse gas emissions or allows people to drive less by making shorter trips, biking, walking, or riding mass transit? We'll move to the candidates in House District 63 now. 1 minute, starting with Luke Howell.
I think one of the first lessons we need to take note on is what we've experienced during COVID right now. We have so many people that have not been able to go to the office. They've had to work from home, and learning the lesson that, you know, we're not necessarily essential to, you know, drive to work every day. There are many days that the productivity can actually go up while we're at home. And we need to take the positives. I know this has been a really hard time, but the positives, you know, from this experience and move forward with some of that in our policy. I drive a hybrid vehicle. Years ago, I was selling roofs for Sheriff Goslin, and I could actually drive through the entire Millwood neighborhood on the electric side of my hybrid vehicle without burning an ounce of gas. And I would have those conversations with some of the roofers that I worked with who sold roofs and drove through neighborhoods too. Why are you burning the most gas possible with your truck when you could have a hybrid? It's those simple conversations sometimes that are the most effective.
Thank you. Continuing in House District 63, same question, 1 minute, John Anthony Pietra.
Well, among other additional local and state policies that can be instituted for this is to make shorter trips by policies to reduce the number of food deserts, healthcare deserts, and other service deserts so that people don't have to travel as far to get what they need. But I would like to go back to the Green New Deal, and on the Hawkins campaign website, howiehawkins.us, a couple of the big issues pages are about the eco-socialist Green New Deal, detailed explanation of it, and of the budget for it and the jobs that will be involved. In transportation reconstruction, there's jobs to be had in interstate high-speed rail system, regional transit, transportation infrastructure, and electric car subsidies. About $1.7 million manufacturing jobs, excuse me, and almost $7 million for total jobs.
Thank you. Continuing House District 63, same question, 1 minute, Rafael Wolf.
Yes, boy, these things are very difficult to answer in just 30 seconds. But, you know, the idea that using electric isn't a fossil fuel is, again, more greenwash thinking. You know, that energy came out of a smokestack most likely, unless it was nuclear, but then you've got to deal with the nuclear pollution. So the discussions about electric hybrid cars, I mean, it's all greenhouse gases that you're putting in your vehicle. Just because it's electric doesn't mean it's not. It has to come from a solar panel or wind for that to qualify. And so to answer the question that allows people to drive less and making shorter trips, well, that's nothing but densification. You need incentives to densify. That means zoning ordinances, allowing businesses to be closer to residential places. And so those are some of the answers to that question. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, the question, if elected, what state policies would you promote and support to develop a transportation system that reduces greenhouse gas emissions or allows people to drive less by making shorter trips, biking, walking, or riding mass transit? We'll move to House District 66. 1 minute, Abigail Wheeler.
In my district in particular, there is a lack of mass transit. We don't really have a cohesive busing system. We don't really have a rail system at all. And so that is something that I would look on implementing. We've been, since where I live in the village of Mattawan is border to Kalamazoo County, we have been looking at trying to get some of their transportation methods here. But mass transit would be the best way for my rural community to try to go a little bit more green. Every single person who is old enough to drive in every household has to have a car in this rural district because there isn't a mass transit system and it is so spread out. So implementing that would help cut down on the number of people driving and therefore hopefully cut down on the amount of emissions we're putting out there. I would love to look at different things such as a rail system to make it a little bit more efficient rather than just relying on something like busing.
Thank you, candidates. We'll move to our next question. This was question 8 that got sent out. I think we'll have time for this one and maybe one more. So let's get through question 8 first. The buildings and home sector still rely primarily on fossil fuels for energy. The recent governor's order appears to promote an energy transformation to renewable sources, such as wind and solar. But again, implementation of these technologies is still a ways off. If elected, what state policies would you promote and support to develop and encourage a transition to renewable energy? We'll start again at the top in House District 60. 1 minute, Stephanie Moore.
Thank you. I definitely would look closely at the pace, at the property assessed clean energy pace. Right here in Kalamazoo County, we have an issue with housing, decent, affordable, healthy housing. And that has a disparate impact on the quality of life, on health, because of all of the toxins and pollutants, lead, insects, all the things that are happening from water going into the homes. Those things make a big impact, a disparate impact on the people in our community, especially those that are at the most disadvantaged. I would look at PACE. It's a state-funded program. The dollars are already there. They just need to strengthen the work to get those resources to reach the actual community, to have the impact that all of those residents deserve. And I would also look at, make sure that my colleagues are supporting the will of our current governor, Governor Whitmer, and that we're supporting that effort to make sure that that plan is not only supported, but the budget is financed fully as well.
Thank you. Same question, 1 minute, Julie Rogers.
Thanks. A combination of grants and incentives for homeowners. Some of the technologies are a little bit pricier, and so looking at tax credits, home heating credits for having more energy efficient furnaces or air conditioners, things like that. I think Iowa has been quite innovative as well with their green building codes that they've put forward at the state level, so I'd be interested in looking at that. To have some upgraded and updated building codes. I think sometimes when you look at, just like it was mentioned, the biggest emitters are vehicles. One of the biggest emitters in terms of infrastructure, it is actually building commercial buildings rather than the smaller residential. So the biggest bang for our buck might be looking at the larger commercial industry first with bigger footprints.
Thank you. Moving to House District 61, same question. 1 minute, Christine Morse.
Thank you. So I was fortunate to meet with the Michigan Energy Innovation Business Council to start to get to learn about these issues, right, and how we can impact them at the state level. It is somewhat complicated the way that our energy resources are highly regulated at the state, and so and our energy law will be coming up to look at it, take another look at it again in 2020. So this will be an issue that we'll be talking about. I would continue to support solar energy production, and as Commissioner Rogers suggested, increasing access by somehow decreasing costs for solar for residential and commercial property owners. We really truly should be harnessing the power of the sun to provide our energy. And I also would think another thing we should do is make a partnership between public schools and unions to expand training programs in green technology so that we have a workforce moving forward to help implement these things.
Thank you. The question again is, if elected, what state policies would you promote and support to develop and encourage a transition to renewable energy? We'll move now to the candidates in House District 63. 1 minute, starting with Luke Howell.
So all three ladies touched on a little bit of what I enjoy, like, and think forward with this issue, but Christine really hit it at the end, and that's education. We need to start advancing our education back into manufacturing and the trades. We can't have energy grids that are advanced and technological and working with turbines and working with solar if we don't even have enough electricians to go to homes to fix electrical problems. So that is a huge component, I think, of this, is bringing a lot of the trades back into our schools, bringing them, connecting them more to the unions as well, so that there's a bridge program from a tech class in a high school to a union class in a union. And it starts there. It starts with people that are thinking about it, wanting it to happen, and working with the technology that is advancing forward with it. Sun City's bringing solar. But the other thing is, wind turbines. Gosh, I wish Holland would go to Northwest Iowa or Pella, Iowa, and just meet the farmers that have put turbines in their home or their farms, because it would make a huge difference.
Thank you. Moving now to the next candidate in House District 63. Same question, 1 minute. John Anthony La Pietra.
There's a lot to say. Efficiency is important, but it doesn't help if it just encourages us to use more and more often. Just as Rafael said, electricity is not a be-all and end-all, a cure-all, if it isn't from non-carbonized sources. We need to focus on that. We also need to focus on negawatts, as we used to say, using less. The Green New Deal, sorry again, has a plan for an interstate renewable electricity system, 1 million manufacturing jobs and over 4 million total jobs. And the national platform of the Green Party calls for a just transition for communities and workers who are most affected by both climate change itself and the transitions we need to make to survive it.
Thank you. Same question, 1 minute. Rafael Wolf.
Yes, thank you. It says here that governor's orders appears to promote an energy transformation, and all these decisions by politicians are not made in a bubble. A lot of it, again, is greenwashing. I agree with John and the Green New Deal and Greens far more than I agree with Democrats and Republicans on these issues. The transformation is for DTE and consumers' energy. It's not a distributed plan for energy independence of the individual. It's not, and these things aren't made in a bubble, and there's many more corporate interests than you suspect on the surface and behind and deep into these issues. I support energy credits and all that, but who's going to pay for it? We have to pay for it, and I'm willing to invest big money on these issues because I think they're important, and nobody's talking about to fund them. Thank you.
Thank you. The question again is, if elected, what state policies would you promote and support to develop and encourage a transition to renewable energy? We'll move to House District 66. 1 minute, Abigail Wheeler.
As stated before, I would go with access to solar panels, putting up wind turbines, making it so that these things are accessible and affordable for everyone to achieve. I don't know if anybody has looked into the cost of putting solar panels on your home, but it can be very expensive. I think that we need to universally implement this. Yes, it is going to be a big change, but we can help people get through that change together. Again, the education piece is really important, educating people on solar energy, on nuclear energy, And again, education with making sure that these are going to union jobs, because again, with union workers and union people, they get done safely and they get done on time and they get done correctly. So it is important to, again, have all of those factors working together to make this a cohesive, achievable plan.
Thank you. We made it through 8 questions. I think that's all the time we have for questions. I'm going to remind our audience of the matchups here just before we move on to our closing remarks. So again, in House District 60, Gary Mitchell was invited, did not respond, and you've been hearing answers from Stephanie Moore and Julie Rogers. In House District 61, Bronwyn Haltom was invited and did not respond. You've been hearing answers from Christine Morse. In House District 63, Matt Hall was invited and declined. Ron Hawkins, we did not invite in time to make today's forum. You've been hearing answers from Luke Howell, John Anthony Pietra, and Rafael Wolf. In House District 66, Beth Griffin was invited and did not respond. And you've been hearing answers from Abigail Wheeler. We'll now move to our closing remarks. We'll go in the same order again. And each candidate will now have 2 full minutes. So we'll start at the top of our order again. In House District 60, 2 minutes, closing remarks, Stephanie Moore.
So when I took the time to lament on my decision to run as a write-in candidate in order to continue putting our community first, I reflected on the stories I've heard in my many years leading the community through turbulent times. I thought about the relationships I've spent years cultivating to move our community forward, but most of all, I thought about how this place I call my home and my heart will not have someone who can lead with ethics and values. Day one in Lansing, let alone someone who will be able to legislate unencumbered. As we look at the landscape of our community, you will see many faces, hear stories, fall in love with our resolve and tenacity. Our community is unconventional and striving to be more perfect every day. Our community is also riddled with unique problems with the status quo cannot solve alone. Our community deserves a choice that will put our community over politics, someone that will discern with ethics, and someone who will be there on day one with one priority, the success of our community, especially when it comes to environmental justice. We deserve a leader who is built for turbulent times and who will put community first. Put Kalamazoo community first. Write in Stephanie Moore, a proven leader that's committed to leading with ethics and leading with values. I have a track record. I'm not just here in philosophy saying what I think or what I believe. My voting record, my history in the community, my work, my service has shown and proved that. I lastly want to end with this. This race for the 60th District State Representative is between 2 candidates, 2 Democrats who are fighting for representation in this seat. There's no way a Republican can win this seat. It doesn't matter if 2 are in this race. We've seen the election results for the last 4 elections consecutively, and even further, that this is going to come down to a Democrat. Elect the Democrat that will represent you by writing in Stephanie Moore, Understate Legislative for Representative for 60th District. I will serve you proudly.
Thank you. Continuing closing remarks from the House District 60 candidate, Julie Rogers, 2 minutes.
Again, Denise, I want to thank you for moderating and thank you for the sponsors. This was a great forum and I learned a lot from my colleagues, so thank you so much. I am the Democratic nominee, as I said before, for House District 60. I am also the only candidate endorsed by the Sierra Club and the League of Conservation Voters. Why I mentioned that is their questionnaire and their vetting is very rigorous and they do not take endorsements lightly. I'm very proud of those endorsements and have been endorsed in other races before. One of my major platforms, along with health and better access to healthcare, is environmental justice and environmental protection. There's so much on the table, and I have a record of championing the environment, whether it be through cleaning up the brownfields in Kalamazoo County, helping staff get grants, thinking innovatively, as well as bringing different resolutions forward, like I mentioned, complete streets and a climate crisis. One of the questions I think that one of your students asked was, do you think climate crisis is a hoax? And I would say emphatically not. I really enjoyed the all community book read in Kalamazoo County called We Are the Weather. If you haven't read it yet, I encourage you to. And it talks a lot about changing how we talk about this climate emergency or climate crisis. I used to call it global weirding, and I don't think global weirding is strong enough. Climate crisis and why I brought that resolution forward before the County Board of Commissioners is exactly what we are in. And if we don't take this seriously, double down on policy and provide some funding at the state level, we will be in a world of hurt and continue to have our communities, particularly our most vulnerable communities of color, our old and our young, face flooding tragedies, droughts, and devastation. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you. Moving to House District 61, closing remarks, 2 minutes, Christine Morse.
I too would like to thank our sponsors and Denise for your wonderful moderation this evening. This has been a really challenging forum and one that required, a lot of thought to be put into these answers. So, in District 61 and District 66 and 63, we have real opportunities to flip the Michigan State House. If we want to see real change on environmental policy and law and funding here in the state, we're going to need a Democratic majority. It's just the truth of the matter. And, I too am endorsed by the League of Conservation Voters, Clean Water Action, and Sierra Club, because I have already made a commitment to improve our environmental, to acknowledge that climate change is a thing and try to move forward as a state government to start to try to impact that area. So as I mentioned earlier, as a county commissioner, we're already seeing the impacts of climate change here in District 9 with the 3-year flooding problem that's been happening. That has impacted hundreds of homeowners, and there were not resources in place to help the residents or to help the local government. They had to create a solution on their own, and they've been doing well, and everyone coming together to try to solve this problem. But we really need to be proactive about putting policies, funding in place. The governor had already, with her budget pre-COVID, had put forth $40 million to start to impact climate change here in our state. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. But she is also putting forth policies like the Community Catalyst organization, which will help local communities plan for climate change. And put some policies into place and possibly funding so that they can also have a response. So thank you for this opportunity. I'm grateful.
Thank you. We'll move to the candidates in House District 63 now for closing statements, 2 minutes, starting with Luke Howell.
Hi. First, I want to say thank you to everybody that put this together and all the candidates that did show up. It shows the seriousness of this issue and a willingness to work together to try and solve these problems. And I think that's the first and most important step. I started my race, as a concerned citizen. My looks like my cat is also going to say goodbye to you guys too. There was a gravel pit going in my community. In 2009, my community said no. And when I bought my house, I thought my community had basically made the final decision on what to do with our vision for our community in Richland. And they said, we don't want it here. Local zoning authorities have facing a possible change because, mining operations and fracking operations and oil operations in our state want to, substantially change the laws so that it strips, local zoning communities from being able to say no to things like that, or to at least have input into where it should go and how it should take place. And so that's what got me into this race. I'm frustrated. I'm a D that wanted to be an I for a long time as an independent somewhere in the middle. I want to be a middle guy. I'm in a very rural district, and I understand that. I grew up, the grandson of farmers and the son of a agricultural business, manufacturer. I understand some of those frustrations. But the biggest thing for me is, I grew up in the Mississippi River community. In 1997, my community faced a 100-year flood. And then, 6 years later, another 100-year flood. And then 10 years later, another 100-year flood. We have to do something. We have to be active. We have to be proactive. And we have to start putting together a vision. I'm really disappointed that my Republican opponent is not here, because I really think it starts with all of us coming to the table and figuring these things out, because they're tough, but they're important and we need to do something. And thank you for you guys' time.
Thank you. Closing remarks, continuing in House District 63, 2 minutes, John Anthony LaPietra.
Thank you very much, and thanks to everyone who put this opportunity together and has run it for us. I'll remind everyone again, Michigan's Constitution says, right at the start, all political power is inherent in the people. Government is instituted for their equal benefit, security, and protection. If we don't have that power, it's because somebody took it from us. We have to take it back from the politicians and lobbyists, like the ones for BTE and the Michigan Oil and Gas Association, who have been backing Proposal 1 this year on the ballot, behind the scenes. We have to take that power back and build open, accountable government. What are the benefits? Livable jobs, doing what our communities need done, and workplace and financial policies to help us do it. Protection for Michigan water, air, and soil, and other public trusts from private greed. Education to help people become good citizens and learners, ready for the work of the future, their own and society's. Tax, justice, health, housing, and food systems that serve the needs of the 99% before the whims of the 1%. Sustainable, fairly funded transportation, infrastructure, and utilities. Elections that are accountable, recountable, accountable, fair for voters and candidates, and free, not for sale. Sustainability is a green value and a Michigan value. So are grassroots democracy, social justice, and community-based economics. I know the office I'm running for belongs to the people of the 63rd District. I won't spend public money promoting myself, and I won't hide from your questions. I'll devote my energy and my experience to representing you and your interests. Thank you for listening. Please vote. First, please visit my JALP for the People Facebook page and migreenparty.org for more on all our candidates, including the original New Dealer, Howie Hawkins. Thank you.
Thank you. Closing remarks, 2 minutes, Rafael Wolf.
Yes, thank you to anybody tuning in. It's much appreciated, and thank you for hosting and inviting third-party candidates. We lack access to media like you can't imagine, and free media opportunity. A little about me, I guess, here to end with. I didn't do that in the intro, but I'm a business owner here in the Kalamazoo area in IT, and I have to work in my business with logic and reason and reality. And what I hear a lot about in the discussions of climate change is just an unrealistic greenwashing of just about everything. And there's a lot of corporate interests involved. Sort of follow the money, and you'll dig up your own answers. Again, the petrodollar is a huge problem. And that's global and it's national, and probably the people in Washington, D.C. could make those big changes. It's a big macroeconomic problem that no single House member or party at the state level is going to solve. Unfortunately, what we need to focus on as citizens and voters is power minimization, not power maximization. I talk a lot about it at my website, wolfspeedahead.com. And voting in another Democrat and Republican is simply not going to solve the problem. They maintain majorities like the Republican House, and if by some chance Democrats took over the House, it would be squashed by the Republican majority held Senate. And so that's the dynamic. We need to make all the parties minority parties, so they will need other votes from other parties. Democrats will need Republican votes. Republican votes might need Libertarian or Green or Independent votes. And so that's what it's about, power minimization. There is no power to the people. Only 3 people really run the state: the governor, House Speaker, and Senate Majority Leader. So again, we need to understand how government works and the facts and the logic here as it relates to politics and environmentalism. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to House District 66. Closing remarks, 2 minutes, Abigail Wheeler.
I just want to say thank you again for hosting this and for having me. I appreciate being able to answer these really great questions. As a firefighter, I have seen the environmental effects that even firefighting has had with AAAF foam, which we don't use anymore, and putting PFAS into our drinking water. And I want to work towards evolving and ever changing those things and learning about new things each and every day as our world changes and trying to protect it the best I can. It's so important to me that I represent the people and that I listen to everyone. When I run into a burning building, I don't ask if the family is Republican or Democrat or Green Party or Independent. I just run in and try to do my best to help. And I want to bring that to the State House as well. I want to represent anybody, everybody, no matter who they are. And I think that is something that hasn't been done in this district for a very long time and something that needs to be implemented, as well as looking at environmental concerns, educational concerns, and transparency concerns regarding the entire state. So once again, thank you for having me. This has been a great forum, and it has been great to listen to all of my colleagues here and learn something new, because I think it's really important that we all stay open-minded and that we are ever learning from each other, and that we keep on doing this really important work that each and every one of us have put in running a campaign. So thank you very much. If you want to learn more about me or have more questions, you can visit my website at wheelerforthe66.com. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, candidates, to all of you who took the time today to participate in this forum. I know that we asked some tough questions and we put you through the gauntlet here in terms of both content and your time. And we really appreciate you joining us here today. For our viewers out there watching, thank you to everyone who tuned into this event, this issue-based environment and climate action forum. We are recording this event and we will be sharing that out. Again, candidates, we ask you to only share the broadcast, the forum in its entirety. We don't allow you to take clips of that and use that against each other, is essentially the ground rule that we agreed to there. And I do want to take a moment to thank our sponsors again of today's event, the Kalamazoo Climate Crisis Coalition, and all of our affiliates and individual members, the WMU Institute of the Environment and Sustainability, and the Western Student Association. Thank you to our students, the VP of Sustainability and the VP of Community Involvement, Henry and Chelsea, for being our wonderful timekeepers today with that digital clock. So thanks to everyone, and I do just want to read a short statement about voting and voting rights to close out today's panel. The Kalamazoo Climate Crisis Coalition is proud to recognize the League of Women Voters Kalamazoo area as an affiliate organization. For more information about candidates, we recommend finding the League of Women Voters Guide online at vote411.org. The print guide is available throughout the county at local government offices, public libraries, and other locations. You can register to vote online if you have a Michigan driver's license or state ID. This works only until October 19. After October 19, you can register in person with your local city or township clerk. You need to bring proof of where you live. In-person voter registration works up to and on election day. A voter may register, request the absentee ballot, and vote all in the same visit to their city or township clerk's office. For those of you who already registered to vote, you can request an absentee ballot. Any Michigan voter may vote absentee. You can find details about how to request an absentee ballot at vote411.org. If you've already requested that absentee, your local township clerk has sent you that by now, or you will receive it soon. Complete your ballot and return it as soon as you can. Be sure to sign the outside envelope before you drop off or send in your absentee ballot. Many cities and townships have secure drop boxes where you may deposit your absentee ballot, or you may take it to your local clerk's office. If you send your ballot via US mail, please put it in the mail no later than October 19th to ensure that it arrives before 8 p.m. on Election Day. Election Day is November 3rd. The polls will be open from 7 o'clock a.m. to 8 o'clock p.m. If you vote in person, please take precautions against COVID-19 by wearing a mask and staying 6 feet away from others whenever possible. You can find all this information and more at michigan.gov/vote, also at the League of Women Voters, vote411.org. And for students listening, specific information for you is available at WMU We Vote. We urge you to vote, whether you vote absentee or in person. Your vote counts. Thank you to everyone again for participating and that made this forum happen.